All right, today we are going deep. We're going to talk about the invisible forces that are constantly shaping our social world, from the boardroom all the way down to our friendships. We're about to uncover these two hidden paths to power that, once you see them, explain so much about why people do what they do. So let's start with a situation I'm sure we've all been in. You're sitting in a doctor's office, or maybe you're listening to some expert give a presentation, and you just find yourself nodding along, right? You accept what they're saying almost without a second thought. But why? Why is that deference, that trust, so automatic? Okay, now let's bring it a little closer to home. Think about that one coworker. You know the one. The person who gives you those backhanded compliments, or maybe they're always interrupting you in meetings. It's that sneaky, corrosive behavior that's just so hard to put your finger on and call out. Now, those two scenarios, the trusted doctor and the undermining coworker, they feel like they're from different planets, don't they? But they are actually deeply connected by a really powerful psychological framework. So today, we're going to explore these two paths to power, see how they work, how they can get mixed up, and, this is the most important part, how we can choose our response to them. So how do we start to make sense of all this? Well, it turns out there's this core idea, and it's backed by a ton of research, that we humans gain status and influence in two completely different ways. And I'm telling you, understanding this is like getting a brand new pair of glasses to see the social world. It changes everything. At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this. On one side, you've got dominance. That's power that is taken through force or the threat of it. And on the other side, you have prestige. This is influence that is freely given to you by other people, simply out of respect. Let's dig into dominance a little more. This is that classic pecking order model we see all over the animal kingdom. It's all about being able to punish people or withhold things they want to make them fall in line. Think threats, intimidation, asserting control. It basically makes other people afraid of you. And then there's prestige. And this path is pretty much uniquely human. See, it's not about taking status at all. It's about being given status because other people genuinely admire your skills or your knowledge, and they actually want to be around you to learn. This generates respect, not fear. All right, let's start with the path that, let's be honest, most of us are familiar with, even if we don't always like it. This is the path of dominance, and it works because it taps into our deep, hardwired responses to authority and to feeling threatened. So a huge reason dominance is so effective is because of this little mental shortcut we all have called authority bias. We are basically programmed to listen to people in power, sometimes even when our own gut is screaming that something is off. It's like a default setting in our brain, and it can be really easily exploited. And you see this play out in the real world constantly. Take this example from a biotech firm. You have Dr. Turner, the director, who presents her findings. The team just accepts them because, she's the boss. But then Lisa, a junior researcher, comes up with a genuinely better method with strong evidence to back it up. And what happens? The team pushes back. They defer to Dr. Turner's dominance, her rank, not the quality of Lisa's actual data. But dominance isn't always some big-shot boss yelling orders. No, often it takes a much sneakier form, what we call social undermining. It's this quiet, insidious way of establishing dominance by just chipping away, bit by bit, at someone else's status and their confidence. So how do you even spot this stuff? It is so important to recognize these behaviors for what they are. Spreading rumors, those compliments that aren't really compliments. This isn't just someone having a difficult personality. These are tactics, whether they're conscious of it or not, that are used to create a dominance hierarchy and put you in your place. But thankfully, that's not the whole story. There is a completely different way to gain influence, one that doesn't rely on making other people feel small. And that is the path of prestige. See, prestige is built on providing real, actual value. It's that expert coder that everyone on the team goes to for advice. It's the amazing artist whose work just inspires people. It's the wise mentor whose guidance people actively seek out. People want to follow because they actually get something good out of the relationship. And what's really fascinating is that psychologically, these two paths are fueled by totally different kinds of pride. Dominance is linked to what's called hubristic pride, that inflated ego, the arrogance. But prestige? That's associated with authentic pride, a genuine confidence that comes from real accomplishments, and it's often paired with humility. Now, as you've probably already guessed, in the real, messy world we live in, these two strategies aren't always in separate boxes. In fact, they can and they very often do mix. Researchers have actually identified what they call bi-strategic people. And these are the folks who are incredibly good at navigating social situations. They can be super helpful and share their knowledge to build up prestige, but they are also not afraid to use a little intimidation when it gets them what they want. And this is where it gets really interesting. Think about somebody who gets promoted to manager because they were a brilliant engineer, right? They earn that position through prestige. But the second they get that manager title, what does the company do? It hands them the tools of dominance, the power to hire, to fire, to control who gets what. The two paths just merged into one. Okay, so now that we have this framework, how can we respond better when we're on the receiving end of a dominance play, like that coworker who's undermining you? The absolute key here is to avoid our default knee-jerk reactions. We usually fall into one of two traps. First, there's submission, just going along with it, either out of fear or old habits. But then there's rebellion, and even that has a hidden flaw. When you're openly fighting against the authority, you're still letting them set the terms of the fight. You're still playing their game. So what about that little secret fantasy of getting revenge? Come on, we've all been there. Imagining that undermining coworker finally getting what's coming to them. It might feel good for a second, but the research is crystal clear. It's toxic. It just keeps you trapped in a cycle of negativity, and it can have real physical effects, like headaches and fatigue. So, what actually works? Well, in a fascinating study that tracked employees who were being undermined, researchers tested all these different coping strategies, and the results were kind of shocking. The only strategy that effectively canceled out the negative health effects wasn't revenge, it was forgiveness. Now hold on. This does not mean you have to go up to the person and say, I forgive you, or pretend that what they did was okay. Not at all. This is an internal process. It's about consciously deciding to let go of those crippling thoughts, to break that cycle of anger, and to take back your own psychological power and control of the situation. So this whole framework really leaves us with a powerful final thought. As you go through your career, your life, you're making choices every single day. You're choosing which leaders to follow and whose behavior you're going to reward with your attention. And you're choosing which path you yourself are going to walk to gain influence. So which is it going to be?